Okay, today we are beginning on 3.3 Mesopotamian Innovations and Contributions. And over here we have the homework where we are at looking for the definition for cuneiform and asking how did Sumerians write? Development of written language. Why was the development of writing important? Mesopotamia was home to several of the world's earliest civilizations. These civilizations made technological and cultural advancements that would influence other societies in the region as well as throughout history. One of the most important cultural advances came from the Sumerian civilization, the first system of writing. Sumerians were the first people to develop a system of writing. The Sumerian writing system, called cuneiform, that's what we're looking for here, was developed around 3300 BCE at about the same time the Egyptians were developing hieroglyphs. We can also get a definition directly from here, or through context by continuing to read through here. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs, which used symbols to represent sounds as well as entire words, the cuneiform symbols were only used to represent sounds. Although it looks nothing like most modern systems of writing, cuneiform is considered the first alphabet. Sumerians wrote on clay tablets. They pressed a stylus carved from the triangular stem of a reed into soft clay, creating wedge-shaped impressions. Cuneiform means wedge writing. When the writer, called a scribe, was done, clay was allowed to dry. The hardened tablets were not easy to transport, but they were very strong, strong enough to last for over 3,000 years. Archaeologists have found thousands of these tablets, many of them in surprisingly good shape. Now, for how did Sumerians write? We come up here. Sumerians wrote on clay tablets. They pressed a stylus carved from the triangular stem of a reed into soft clay, creating wedge-shaped impressions. Help you answer that. Now we are looking for how did writing impact Sumerian life? The impact of writing. The development of writing impacted all aspects of Sumerian life. Farmers could record which crops they grew each year and record plans for future planting. Merchants were able to keep detailed records of their transactions. Laws could be written down and standardized across large areas. Records of legal disputes and the resulting settlements could also be kept. So that paragraph there should help you answer how did writing impact Sumerian life. Now we are looking for how did the creation of a calendar improve agriculture? Reading and writing cuneiform was difficult. Children had to go to school to learn it. Schools were usually located in temples. Teachers would write a passage on one half of a clay tablet, and then the student would copy the teacher's symbols onto the other half. Sumerians used cuneiform writing in almost every aspect of their daily lives. They kept lengthy and careful records of every item they bought, from land and livestock to sheep. They used it to write letters, epic stories about gods and heroes, and prayers to the gods. They even created dictionaries, as well as essays about math and science. Because they did so much writing, and because so much of it has survived, we know a lot about who the Sumerians were and how they lived. Now we are on to page 2 of Explore for 3.3, and we are still looking for how did the creation of a calendar improve agriculture? The Epic of Gilgamesh. What were ancient Mesopotamian legends about? Some stories from Mesopotamia still survive today. The Epic of Gilgamesh is a Sumerian legend. The legend was an oral story passed along from generation to generation. It is believed to have first been written down around 2000 BCE, and it was the first discovered in the library of Ashurbanipal, the king of the Assyrian Empire. The term epic refers to a long poem or story, usually about gods and heroes doing great deeds. Epic of Gilgamesh is believed to be the earliest surviving piece of literature. In other words, it is the oldest written story we have ever discovered. The story details the life of Gilgamesh. It follows his transformation from a cruel tyrant to a strong and respected leader. Gilgamesh the Tyrant. When the story begins, Gilgamesh, the ruler of the city of Uruk in Babylonia, is a cruel and unpredictable king. Because of his cruelty, the people cry out to the gods for help. Anu, the goddess of creation, hears their prayers and creates a man who is equal to Gilgamesh in strength. This is Enkidu, a hairy wild man who lives with animals. A beautiful temple priestess brings Enkidu out of the wild and into society. It is then that Enkidu hears about Gilgamesh's brutality, and he travels to Uruk to challenge him. Enkidu and Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh fights with Enkidu, and in the process the two become friends. Together they travel to the cedar forest, where the monster Humbaba lives, to test their strength and bravery. They, there they fight and kill Humbaba. Goddess Ishtar is impressed by their power and tries to woo Gilgamesh, but he rejects her. Ishtar is furious and convinces the gods to release the Bull of Heaven to attack Gilgamesh. Enkidu and Gilgamesh kill the bull, but the gods take Enkidu's life as punishment. Death and immortality. Gilgamesh is devastated by Enkidu's death and terrified at the thought that he too must someday die. He leaves Uruk and seeks out Utnapishtim, a man who was granted immortality by the gods. Utnapishtim tells Gilgamesh about an underwater plant that will restore his youth. Gilgamesh finds the plant, but after picking it, he falls asleep. As he sleeps, the plant is eaten by a snake. Gilgamesh takes this as a lesson that death cannot be cheated, and he decides that it would be better to live and rule wisely. With this new understanding, Gilgamesh becomes a kinder and more reasonable ruler. On to explore page 3, the lessons of Gilgamesh. You're still looking for how did the creation of a calendar improve agriculture? What does the Epic of Gilgamesh tell us about Sumerian culture? Historians have learned much about the culture of Sumer from the Epic of Gilgamesh. The story tells us about the gods and goddesses of Sumer and the roles they played in human life. The story also tells us about what the Sumerian people valued in a ruler. Gilgamesh was always a strong man, but until he learned to protect his people from monsters, rather than abusing and taking advantage of them, he was not seen as a worthy king. The story also provides insights about the Mesopotamian attitude towards nature. Anything outside the cities was seen as wild and dangerous, filled with monsters like Humbaba that threatened human society and needed to be killed. Even Enkidu could not be a hero until his wild nature was tamed. The Epic of Gilgamesh is a timeless story. It contains themes that appear over and over again throughout human history and literature: reconciliation, friendship, heroism, love, jealousy, and death. Elements of the Gilgamesh story can be found in religious texts and other forms of literature from other cultures around the world, including the Hebrew Bible, the Greek epic Iliad, and the medieval Beowulf stories. The same themes are still important today, and they can be found in modern books and movies. On to explore page 4, and it seems that we have found the page where we're going to find an answer for how did the creation of a calendar improve agriculture? The Mesopotamian calendar. How did the creation of a calendar improve agriculture? In addition to a writing system, Mesopotamian societies also created calendars, an innovation which helped to improve agriculture throughout the region. Calendars, varying slightly from kingdom to kingdom, were developed in several areas of Mesopotamia. Over time, many neighboring kingdoms adopted the Babylonian calendar. In this calendar, months were around 30 days long and were named after the 12 constellations of the zodiac. The Babylonian names for these constellations were Nisanu, Ayaru, Simanu, Utsu, Abu, Yululu, Tashritu, Araksamna, Islimu, Tibitu, Shabatu, and Dadaru. The basis of the modern calendar can be seen in these ancient calendars were lunar, or based on the cycle of the moon, unlike our modern calendar, which is based on the Earth's movement around the sun. Calendars helped farmers to know when floods would be coming so their crops wouldn't wash away. Knowing when floods would come, knowing when the floods would come improved agriculture in Mesopotamia. As a result, farmers were able to harvest more food. This surplus food enabled the cities to support larger populations. Having surplus food, which could be traded for other goods, also helped Mesopotamians establish trade with other civilizations. So, how did the creation of calendar improve agriculture? Your answers are right in these last two paragraphs. On to page 5, and we are looking for which two technological advances were important in Mesopotamia? How did they help society? And we have our answers here as we are reading about advances in technology. How did Mesopotamian technological innovations improve agriculture, trade, and transportation? Mesopotamia is located in the fertile land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Farming was a large part of life in the region. For this reason, many important innovations in early Mesopotamia were developed to make farming easier. However, these innovations impacted trade and transportation as well. Two important technological advances were the inventions of the wheel and the plow. If we look over here, what two technological advances were important in Mesopotamia? It looks like we found them. Now we're looking for how did they help society? Wheels allowed for quicker and easier transportation. Prior to the invention of the wheel, people had to carry their goods or use animals to carry their loads. The wheel made the use of carts possible. This enabled traders to carry more goods and supplies while moving more quickly along the trade routes. The plow made it easier to break up the soil for planting. Plows were made of iron and were pulled by oxen. By using these new tools, farmers could not only do more work, but they could also work more quickly than they previously had been able to work. Mesopotamians also learned to work with metals. The Mesopotamians worked with iron, copper, tin, and gold. These metals were melted down and poured into casts to create a variety of tools in addition to plows. The table below shows some of these metals and the tools made from them. The tools and weapons that were made from metal were stronger and lasted longer than the tools made out of wood. The metal goods were traded to other civilizations. Mesopotamians also used copper to create containers that could be used to store and transport a variety of materials. As Mesopotamians continued to spread and interact with other cultures through trade, the use of metals expanded and improved. Now, looking for the second half of the question, how did they help society? Back up here. Your answer is in the second half of the paragraph and this paragraph. This explains how wheels were important, and this explains how plows were important. Archaeologists, people who study the material remains of ancient cultures, have also found potter's wheels and kilns, which indicate that Mesopotamians made and used ceramics as well. Ceramics, which featured artistic designs, could be used in the transport and storage of grains and other crops. This was important for trade as well as for maintaining a food surplus and offering food to the gods in religious ceremonies. The last two pages will be on the next